Welcome back, guys. Part two of Olly Groome's interview chat. Go through his team. This is where we really get into the team. So I hope you enjoy this bit. Yeah, I've said it all in the last video. He's been brilliant. It's amazing. Olly Groome podcast. So let's get into your team. Did you? Was it hard? Did you mull over it for a long time? Was it like no him?
No, I mean, this is again the sort of conversation we'd have in a car going up and down the country over the years. Like my best 11, and I said this to you. I mean, it's very similar to what it would have been. Very similar to probably what Louis did, and slightly similar to what Greg did. There's two changes I made to my what I would have said for the last 10 years are my best 11. Two positions where I let my heart rule my head. I'll get to those two, but I have reasons for that. But other than that, pretty easy. And in the midfield, when we get to it, I've had to put square pegs in round holes just to get those names in, really. Yeah. But it'll work. Slightly out of position, a couple of them, but it is what it is.
And you picked my all-time favourite player as well, so you can do what you want with the rest of it. I mean, okay, lovely. So who have you gone for in goal?
Dean Kiely in goal.
Showed Benty the 2 goals against them on Saturday.
That game at Birmingham was the one I would mention. That was incredible. Two saves in the game. I was there as well. You can actually see me. I can't really point it out here. I'm behind the goal near the front there in a yellow shirt, jumping up and down when he makes the first save. It was a midweek. I think it was a midweek game and a half term, which means I can sort of
people's reactions
not worry about it. I can see myself.
And that tells you can't manufacture that. You cannot manufacture that. Is that people reacting to that? We loved each other.
I don't know how much you knew about it.
Everyone got on like a house on fire.
The first one, you're not sure you knew
it's
much.
Great to see people forwards reactions. So Dugarry picking me up off the floor, how he kept that out, and then the fella holding his head in his hands. That's a great feeling for a goal.
Tells you everything, doesn't it? Did many players do that?
But yeah, I mean, it has to be him because it's the sort of the level we were playing at, and same for most of these players, the level we're playing at, and that sort of thing. Like, it's just incredible. Just an incredible goalkeeper, a really good guy. And yeah, we were lucky to have him, I think, for so long during that period.
Really well. I mean, international. I mean, he's one of those players that just came in and sort of like, he came in after Illich and just sort of took the shirt, and you're like, no one's going to be better than Illich. He's a club hero. And then you watch him play and you're like, oh, right, this is what, for want of a better phrase, proper keeper looks like. He's just everywhere. I think you can always tell a good keeper by how many teeth they've got. The less teeth, the better. And he's incredible.
Yeah, there's probably a few reasons why he's missing those teeth, but those stories are for other people another day. But yeah, no, just a really good goalkeeper. A lot was made about his kicking, but I mean, even now you hear this less and less actually as the generations come through, and they don't realise and then they forget. But for years, do you remember, like, if a goal kick went out for a throw in, it would be Dino.
Yeah.
For years, you don't hear that as much anymore. Maybe a little bit, but I had memories of Kerb saying that was an instruction almost, was to get his kicks out to the flanks, which is why they went out quite so often. And even if you're boxing someone in for a throw in or whatever, so it gets it's a little bit harsh. Some of the criticism, not criticism so much because it wasn't as important. It's not like we were playing out the back or anything, was it, at the time, so distribution wise? But yeah, his kicking, I think you can probably blame Kerbs more for that, because that was the instruction, to get it as far out to the flanks as he could.
Yeah,
that's for Kerbs to explain. I'm sure he has explained that as well on Charlton TV or Valley Pass, as it was back in the day. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I haven't heard it, but if I'm Kiely, I'm 100% saying that. He made it. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was going to say it's a shame where he is now, Dino, but I'm sure given the opportunity, he'd come home in the right circumstances.
I was going to say, can you forgive him? Do you forgive him? I mean, the thing that I always forgot I never took into consideration when I'm a kid supporting Charlton is why geography is important. Like, if your kids go to a certain school, like, why would you move all the way up north or go, wherever? Like, it makes sense that so many of our players cross over with Palace. Not so much Millwall. You don't get so many going to Millwall, but definitely Palace seems to.
So you wouldn't want to do that anyway. But yeah, I guess it has been, especially not. We had some great players that went between the two. People like John Humphrey, obviously went to Palace, came back. So it's, more so but you're right, more crossover with Palace than with Millwall, isn't there?
Yeah.
Normally only been players sort of on the way down going to Millwall. People like Kim Grant obviously scored 2 goals against Millwall in the snow my first season, and then ended up playing for them a few years later. So it's funny how it works out.
I mean, in terms of players that have kind of that people remember, Charlton players don't get remembered very often, but people seem to always remember Kylie. And I think he played 222 times for us in the 664 career appearances. He did seem to have his best spell at us, and he goes on to play for good teams after. But it does seem like Charlton is really where he cemented his, Premier League career.
Yeah, because before that he was playing lower down. I think we got him from Bury, didn't we? And he was at York, and so that was him stepping up, And he wasn't like he was young at the time. He wasn't like a young goalkeeper by the time he'd had a decent sort of lower league career by that time. So I guess he would probably tell you that as well, wouldn't he? That was his best time of his career. And we saw the best of him. Obviously, he went to he got phased out a little bit, didn't he, towards the end, which was a little bit of a shame. By the last couple of seasons we were in the Prem.
Scott Carson comes in, doesn't he? And I mean, for me,
even before that, we had the sort of Stefan Anderson, Thomas Myra situation, and then Scott. They're all gone by the time Scott Carson came in on loan. So it was a little bit of a shame how that ended, but again, just a really, really good goalkeeper, and he said international as well. So I think when I was that sort of age as a kid, sort of secondary school, and we've got international players playing for us and going to World Cups and all that sort of thing. It's just cool, isn't it? Because you can't think that happening now, can you? And it's even then it was a bit of a novelty,
Yeah. I mean, for some reason, I've got a real clear memory of playing with him on FIFA Street. That first FIFA Street. I've looked through and I can't find him anywhere. I don't know if I'm getting mixed up with Paddy Kenny, but for me, I was like, I had
on a street game.
It was only him and Matt Holland, I think, that were in the whole game for Charlton players. But I mean, was that sounds like, was that sort of the easiest decision in terms of?
Yeah, goalkeepers. Yeah, I mean, I think by far we've been lucky actually with goalkeepers generally over the years, especially goalkeepers coming through the academy. Because obviously, towards the end of the Premier League years, obviously Dan Randolph was knocking around, and then Rob Elliott. And then we had Dan Randolph and Rob Elliott exactly the same time, both very, very good, competent number one goalkeepers.
Yeah, Philip.
And Dan Randolph only left because he couldn't get guaranteed this number one shirt over Rob Elliott.
Yeah.
And obviously Ben Hamer came in, and Nick Pope a couple of years later, and I don't think any of us sort of knew what he was going to go and do. He was a very good goalkeeper. We knew that. He had to sort of iron out some of those areas early on, which he did. And again, really just a really, really good guy, Nick, as well. Popey, he was one of those normal guys. One of those normal, he used to just, I think it was a red Nissan Micra. Even when he left, that was what he was driving around.
Oh my God.
Micra? It was red. Even then, in our sort of bottom end of the championship time, he was still just a normal bloke. Bump into him in Blue Water a few times, and
it doesn't seem like he'd rattle a defence like Kylie did, though, and that's one of the things I think we've really been missing. And I think actually, looking on Saturday, Ice did seem to do that a bit more. Maybe it was arm around the shoulder at points as well. I remember him walking off at half time, putting his arm around Eden's shoulder. But that's one thing that Maynard Brewer hasn't had, is that ability to spur the defence on and sort of lead from the back in a way. But Kylie, 100%, they had so much confidence in him, and he had so much confidence in them, that it kind of bred this amazing back five in a way.
Yeah, and I think he was very lucky in that he had a very good defence in front of him around that time as well. I think that's why Sasha is fondly remembered, obviously because of the playoff final and the 9 games in the run up to that, the clean sheets when he came into the side. But the defence he had in front of him was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that he probably was Sasha as good a goalkeeper as we thought. that's up for debate. But it's he was part of a very good back five, including the goalkeeper at that time. But Dino, in his own right, was unreal.
So flat back four, I'm guessing. Simple.
Yeah, I'm just going to go flat. Yeah, flat 4-4-2 because it's just easier to break down, isn't it?
So where we going? We're going
right to left. All right, let's go left to right then. I'll go again. So Chris Powell.
Now Svensson. Captain's there again, looking this time for Ewell in the middle, and in behind him was Powell.
I have to do some work to get
those. 2 goals in something like 150 appearances for Charlton, and they've both been scored against Tottenham.
Oh, this is incredible. He's just taken a gamble. That's all Chrissy Powell has done. Jason Ewell does well, but Ledley King, he's the culprit. He doesn't deal with it. It's just a hopeful ball in. And this is just about strength and muscle, but Ledley King doesn't deal with it. Chrissy Powell just really takes the initiative to Spurs. He's thinking, right, I'm just going to take a gamble here, and he gets...
It's fantastic, really, what we've done this season against the London sides, and we're determined to do it again tonight. And, I've popped up with the goal against my beloved Spurs, so I'm well pleased with that.
Yeah, great night. I was there that night as well. Brilliant night. That was very much a left back's finish, wasn't it?
Just off the thigh.
But probably the easiest name to put on this list. Obviously, all encompassing, not just as a player, but as a person and a manager as well.
Smile. It's that smile. He just could say anything to you. I'm not playing you this week, and I've shagged your missus, and then does that smile, and you go,
fine, Powell. Yeah, but just first and foremost, as a player, brilliant. Got in the England squad at his age, which I think it was at the time was either one of the oldest debutant or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And that was for a very good reason. And all that stuff in the press at the time, like Chris Who and all that sort of stuff, was embarrassing really from them. Yeah. But and they soon found out because he played. Is it 4 caps or 5? He made more. People think it was a 1-cap wonder. He wasn't. He played.
He played that whole sort of period, didn't he?
Just again, it wasn't loads, but it was more than just the one. It was 3 or 4. But he, just a really good, committed. Could get for people forget got forward as well and got plenty of crosses into the box and just got assists and solid. Just a really, really solid, like reliable, and to come back for so many spells. Again, it was just like a warm blanket when he'd gone away and you felt he'd gone to places like Watford, didn't he, and West Ham. But he comes back and it's that last game he played against when he scored a goal against Coventry. That was just a proper magic moment.
Amazing. I was there. Yeah, I mean he obviously he's at Sheffield Wednesday now as the assistant coach. Were you there when he was manager?
Yeah, so I had the back end of it. Yeah, but I'm brilliant. It was really sad when he went. I think I obviously saw a fair few managers go.
Yeah.
But that was the one. It was my first one I saw go working there. But that was pretty horrendous when that happened with Rowan. It was the day after the Sheffield United game, cup quarter final, and even that, where I was in the office with. Working late on the Monday night, and we announced it on the Tuesday. But Katrine couldn't get through to him on the phone to sack him, and we'd just been told to prepare the story, so it was like waiting in the sort of waiting room of a hospital, knowing that the plug's about to be pulled on someone you love. She couldn't get through to him, and then she started crying. It was all very awkward. It was awful, and again, we knew it wasn't the right thing to have done at the time. What he'd had to have gone through with the Rowland situation at the time, his hand tied by players coming in that he didn't know anything about, and losing people that we shouldn't have lost at the time, and just that sort of time working with him was superb, because he was various managers are good or bad or somewhere in between for media and for press and stuff like that, but because he was who he is, he was an absolute dream for the Cons team, and because he knew just as much about Charlton as we did and I did, so it was, you could talk about, remember that, like that Spurs goal, for example, and things like that, and remember this, remember that, and chatting to him about that Coventry goal he scored, and he couldn't enjoy it because he got pulled up for drug testing immediately afterwards.
Oh,
Maybe because he scored a goal and they thought this is suspicious. But the way around, he couldn't actually enjoy it, and everyone had gone by the time. Things like that, those little anecdotes and stories.
Yeah.
As a Charlton fan, it's great chatting to someone like him, and he's someone. If you were to message now, he'd get back to you in a day, quickly. Wow. So someone that will always obviously be loved at Charlton, and for very good reasons.
He's having. It seems like his career, although he's not a manager, it does seem like his career's just kind of gone from strength to strength. I mean, the job he does for England and then Tottenham, and I don't know if he's. I mean, like you said, you can pick up your phone and message him. I'm guessing you don't know, but can you see him getting back into management, or do you think that kind of?
I think he said he wouldn't. I think he's probably found his place, really, as far as coaching and stuff goes, which happens, doesn't it? With managers. I've always been of the opinion I would have loved to have seen him back with us. Hopefully we will one day. But I was always like sort of waiting for, every time a managerial position came up, like it would be great to have him back. I think that ship sailed now. But I again, always of the opinion that it would work for him at Charlton. Do you know what I mean? Like, sort of like people said so many years of Eddie Howe at Bournemouth. Obviously, he's gone on now to prove that wrong at Newcastle. But the environment, everything just works for Chris Powell, doesn't it? Yeah. And that's why it worked so well. And that 2011-12 season, that probably wouldn't have happened under another manager, because it was, it wasn't just Chris Powell. It was Peter Varney as the chief exec, and working together and spending the club's money like it was their own money. There wasn't a lot of it. In the same way we built under Curbs, there was that foundation of Charlton people building it the right way. And,
a lot of credit has to go to Varney, I think. Listening to that interview he does on Mod Pod, I don't know if you hear it, but the way he says that they built that team, and Chris Powell gives him, 2-3 characteristics for 2 different players in each position, and they have to have different characteristics. Well, that sort of thing. It just sounds so well thought out, and like that's the perfect guy you want to build with. And that's just where you don't see that as a fan, do you? Obviously, as a fan, you're just looking at 11 players on the pitch, and you're like, well, why is he doing that? Who's doing that? And why? And then as soon as you start thinking, well, why is Chris Powell playing this person? And you realise, because he's been told to, or the Chatelet's put him in the squad, or they're the only players you can get. It just feels like it's a bit unfair and been cut short. But
I think that was a real missed opportunity when we went up. Obviously, we had ownership issues at the time before Roland came in that weren't as well publicised, I guess, which is why that had to happen. But if we had have gone up like we did, and then added, if you remember, I think we added Ricardo Fuller and Laurie Wilson, I think. Yeah. I think that was it, pretty much, as far as that first team core went. Whereas then we finished, what was it, 2 or 3 points outside the playoffs in the end. We had that season run where we weren't really amongst it until right at the day. If we had one more game, we might have got in there. And you just think, like, if money was put, available to build that momentum, because around that time you had teams like Southampton and Norwich in a couple of years before that bounced all the way through up to the Prem. That could have been us.
Happened a few times,
in the right situation, that easily could have been us, because the feel good factor was there. They'd built this squad of characters who dragged us through, and everything was right, bar behind the scenes when it came to that. So the right circumstance, again, it's like football, and it's sliding door moments for everything. Even when we went up in 2019, if you added to that squad under Roland as well, like,
well, if you just had Lyle Taylor till the end of the fucking season, that would have been nice. Like, just a couple, 2-3 more goals, and then God knows what happens if Sangard then comes into the team that is in the Championship and spends money, and then suddenly he's not only the saviour, but maybe we're getting certain players in certain positions. God knows what can happen,
Well, we shouldn't have been relegated that season. So much went again. Everyone always says everything evens out. That was the one time. Well, that's the one thing that's made me never believe that, because nothing evened out for us. Obviously, all the stuff that went against us with contracts and stuff and Lyle, but in those COVID games, those last 6 games or whatever it was, it felt like every single game after those first couple of wins we got coming back, QPR and Hull, there was something, a refereeing decision, a penalty that wasn't given, an offside goal.
Yeah.
Chook scored a goal that was perfectly legit, that got ruled out, that denied us a couple of points, that would have kept us up. Even the bloody goal that Barnsley scored against Brentford was offside, and it doesn't get mentioned.
No,
it doesn't
matter, does it? Because we got that week down, and then
it's just like fuck it, like, and it really felt like everything went against us. We had the ESI situation, and despite everything that got thrown at us, we were that close, and we deserved to stay up. I mean, obviously the table says otherwise, but it doesn't tell you the full story about everything that went on, and it really hurt. It really, really hurt that.
I mean, I want to talk to you forever, Ollie. I really do. All right, let's go on to where are we going? We're going left. We'll
go with Jorge Costa in the centre.
Reinforcements were needed, so Portuguese international defender Jorge Costa from Porto and Chris Williams from Nottingham Forest were recruited until the end of the season.
Now then, it's a Charlton debut for the Portuguese international Jorge Costa. Fish has come off. Costa pulling the tank. Nearly 50 caps he's got for Portugal. He's on loan from Porto.
Sheringham. And here's Anderton with the run from deep. Excellent recovery tackle by Jorge Costa. That's the sort of play that they bought him for. 30 plus caps for Portugal, played against England at Euro 2000. And very solid at the back.
Pretty sure I edited that video together a few years ago.
Did you put that together?
I think so, yeah. I think I did. But
thank you. I need to start
send you an invoice for that one. But like again, didn't play many games for us in the grand scheme of things. But what a player, and how lucky we were to have him. The pedigree, we only got him because he had a falling out with the manager who at FC Porto.
Was it Mourinho?
Mourinho was the one that brought him back, and so in between Costa coming to us, I believe this is right. That manager at the end of that season or whenever had left, and Mourinho then came in the following season, and a couple of years later he was lifting the champion, lifting UEFA Cup and winning European trophies, and so we were one of those situations where the stars aligned and we were able to get someone that we would never have been able to get otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible career he has, and to think to get someone like that that's not like a John Barnes or whatever, where they're just on the end of their career, and he goes on to win the Portuguese Golden Ball year afterwards. He obviously won the Champions League. It is incredible, and to think for me, I love hearing Kerbs talk about it, but I think it goes a long way to say, if you're a Premier League club in London, you've got a good chance of bringing some decent players in, just because location and the fact that you're in the best league in the world.
I guess so. Yeah, as I said, we were just in a lucky situation where it made sense for him to come to us. I'm sure if you asked him how much he knew about Charlton, probably very little, right? But that didn't matter because he fell in love with the place. Like I remember, I was up at his last game. I think we got a 0-0 draw at Old Trafford last game of the season, and he was in tears, saying goodbye. He knew that was it, and he'd only been around for 7-8 months or so, but I fell in love with the place. And even now, he sort of still comments on stuff on Instagram on the club stuff and things like that. So he'll never, brilliant. He's the only person actually on my 11 that I've never interviewed or done anything with, which is just a shame. But I would have liked to. But
it's incredible. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say his quality was just there to see, and he never. The tank was, as he was called, he never seemed to move, but he was always there. You know what I mean? Yeah. He never had to sprint anywhere. If you imagine him now, he ain't tracking back and busting a gut. But then you look at some of that footage. He's there to make that block, and he just read the game, didn't he? And knew exactly how to handle whatever, and if you think about the strikers he came up against.
Oh God,
and kept quiet, and that was happening at the Valley for us in a red shirt. And the fact that he played that amount of games for us in that short period of time, and he's still talked about 23 years
24,
later.
Yeah,
It's, you know, speaks volumes for him and how good
most
he was.
famous back five. Sorry, Young, Fish, Costa, Fortune, and I think that when you think of those three in the middle together, Fish and Costa, they're big, bulky guys, but that makes sense to bring Fortune through, who's a bit more nippy and going to run around a bit. Kerbishy knew what he was doing. I think it's safe to say.
I think he did most of the time. Actually, he was in the dugout. To be fair to
him. All right, let's crack on then. So who's playing next to him?
Richard Rufus next to him.
Davis, great first-time ball for Ziga. Oh, what a good challenge again by Rufus. That'll make him feel even better on that one. He's not hanging about.
Superb, absolutely superb. The first one really is so important. Just look at the burst that Ziga makes, and that's so important to Spurs if they can get him forward, and then he follows it up with a really crunching tackle on Gus Bowyer that really has left the Uruguayan down on the pitch, feeling that. Oof, that's strong.
Yeah, it was the same night as our goal, that wasn't it?
Yeah.
Again, and that game, he just come back from a decent layoff injury as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that ended up ending his career early. But yeah, that was his first appearance back, and doing that and nearly bursting the ball with a tackle. It's again showed his commitment, showed how good he was. Again, loads of games for us. That key part of that team in the 90s that took us up.
I remember watching that game at home and thinking, right, Rufus, he was my favourite player at the time. Like, he's just come back. Like, everyone like, oh, great, he's back. And I swore he must have injured himself in that tackle, but he gets up. The way he gets up and just goes straight into that second tackle, you just don't see that from Charlton anymore. It just doesn't seem to happen. We don't seem to have anyone who's got that intensity about them.
Yes, well, yeah, I guess the game's different. It's evolved, you could argue, but yeah, I know what you mean. Richard Rufus is someone who, if he was playing now in that time, would have got an England call up now, if that makes sense, with the amount of friendlies and stuff like that. But never did then, because they were harder to come by, and probably should have done, I think. And maybe without the injuries, he would have done. And obviously, doesn't get talked about as much, nowadays for obvious reasons.
When did you do your interview with him, and what was that? How was that?
He was working as an academy coach before that sort of happened, and why he left. So chatted to him a few times at that time, and did the odd little interview for the programme and stuff before that. And in fact, after, when it was sort of rumbling on initially, because it took years, didn't it, before it all sort of came to fruition last year. Yeah, in court. I was trying to put together an anniversary playoff thing, and speaking to as many people as I could about doing a sort of big video thing, which never came to fruition in the end. I spoke to him about it at the time, left him a message, and he returned. He basically said, "Oh, thank you so much for thinking of me, but I think at the moment it's best to keep my head down," sort of thing. Which is, I get it. It's tough, isn't it, when any club legend sort of gets himself in trouble like that.
Yeah,
I think also it's important not to eradicate. I think there's different. Again, you've got to be careful about what you say. I mean, there's certain things I think people can do that means that they should be eradicated. But I think in 20 years' time, maybe, he'll be welcome back at events and whatever. And I don't know. But
it's so hard, isn't it? Because you think that he's
tough.
Having him around the club and that kind of player like Jason Pearce does now. You think they could only learn positive things from his playing style and the way he played and the character that he had. It's another one like Mendonca that, completely different to Mendonca because, things ended differently with him. But you want Rufus around you. You want players like that to teach the youngsters, what it's like to be a Charlton player. But yeah, things go differently. Sliding doors, I guess, again.
Yeah, and again with his injury, like ending his career a lot earlier than it should have done, then who knows? Like, obviously, probably wouldn't have gone down the route he went down, and
different time as well. If he's playing 10 years later, he's made enough money already, probably to live off for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
lovely. Okay, let's end that conversation. So who have you gone for right back?
So Chris Solly. So as I mentioned before, there's two where my heart has led my head, and this is the first. So Chris Solly in a right back. I think it would have been Luke Young, but I put Chris Solly in there just for a number of reasons. I don't know if you've got a clip or not. You're going to show?
Yeah.
Broke my laptop. That went in. That goal.
You can imagine.
No, it was just before actually, because we hit the crossbar just before that. It was 90 of something minute, wasn't it? Ball was bouncing around, hit the crossbar, and smashed my laptop in frustration, and the front of it, just plate of it, just came off. And then we scored, and it was trying to put it back together again. But yeah, so Sol's obviously his career speaks for itself at Charlton, and I know you had a few concerns when someone else put him in their team, but doesn't tell the full story there at all. And I think Sol's, he can speak for himself, but he's someone that won't and doesn't, he's not that sort of person. But there's a lot of mistruths about the situation there. Like he did offer to play out his contract. It was the last couple of games which were the issue, unlike Lyle, where he just straight up didn't want to play any of them.
Yeah.
There was existing issues there with management and stuff like that, and he was never going to be involved. This is the truth of the matter.
He was injured, wasn't he?
He'd been left out, put it that way, by the management at the time, and so was never. He wasn't in contention. When you compare that to Lyle, where we needed him, and as well didn't even offer to play those last 2 or 3 games. So, whereas Sols did, that's the fact. He offered to play out his contract.
It's such a shame not knowing that as a fan, because no one wants their like Solly. I mean, I had a long time away from Charlton. I went to university same time you did, and that meets up with the decline. And rather than going into a job where I can stay around the club, I actually take a job where I'm working on Saturdays. And you all the stories you hear, and you go and see them on the odd occasion, and it seems like you've got players there that don't want to play. It's like, well, I'll just get on with other stuff. And then so Solly was that one player who 301 appearances, and they're all for us pretty much. 301 appearances for us that and then for that to happen at the end and not to know the full story, it's really tough, because as fans who aren't kept in the loop, you start to you lump him in and you go with what the story is, which is these 3 players aren't going to be playing out their contract, and that's the thing, isn't it? You can only go on with the information you're given.
Yeah, and it was hard. He was upset by it. He did love the club, and I think there were plans. We had plans to. I'd prepared a statement and a sort of open letter from him to say goodbye and explain best we could, and that got whittled down to something else, and that got whittled down to something else, and that got to the point of you're not saying anything. And that was from the top. We don't want anything going out. And that went on for weeks. Again, this is during lockdown, obviously. It went on for weeks, and eventually I had to make the call to Sols and say, look, they don't want us putting anything out, because I kept running by him everything I'd written and spoken to him about, and editing it and cutting it down, and it was really upsetting to have to tell him, the club, we're not putting anything out. We've been told we're not putting anything out, and that really upset him.
I bet
because of that, and I did offer. I said, if you want to, speak to Rich Cooley, speak to someone, get your side of the story if you want to, mate, because it is important, because you should be welcome back whenever. And his thing was, I don't feel like I want to now because of everything that's happened, and hopefully that will change at some point. I'm sure it will, because when we have anniversary dinners or whatever for the 2012 title winning season or whatever, things like that, he should be one of the first people back there, because he was one of those that cared. Even you think back to that 15-16 season when we got relegated. We got relegated because of the recruitment at the time, and some of the players that were brought in weren't sort of part of that group. And Sols was the one, who showed emotion and got that game up at Huddersfield where we got spanked 5-0 on the Tuesday night. And Reza got sent off, and there was a big to-do in the dressing room because Soles cared about the club and he was emotional about the people there that didn't care as much as he did, and this is why we're going down. Those are the people you need around your club. Simple as that. Those are the people you want there. So it's been very unfair on him, unfortunately, and I'm sure it will all get resolved eventually.
Well, I think it's conversations like this with people like yourself, and I had Gavin Billines on last week, and he told me the same thing. And you just feel like an idiot sitting there going, "Well, all that stuff I said or thought before, obviously that wasn't true." But you.
Well, I guess it wasn't obvious, but that's the problem, isn't it? That it was it was impossible for us to get anything out there, and obviously it's up to him then, isn't it? So and he's not that sort of person. He's a very insular guy. Again, one of the most normal people who was turned up, did his stuff, went home to his family.
Which is lovely. That's what you want to hear, isn't it? And it's sort of what you associate with Chris Solly. Okay.
Sticking to the football though, we all know very, very solid player, very, very good player. His first full season was that title winning season. Chris Powell gave him that responsibility of being our first choice right back at a young age, and he took it with both hands and took it to the Championship like a duck to water. And again, could well have attracted interest of a club higher up, if not for some of his injuries. So again, when you look at the stats and the amount of games he played at that time, you can't shy away from him being a Charlton legend, really. No,
100% not. And no, and I think you're 100% right. And like you said, Luke Young as well. He's beaten out some big players, but Luke Young, like you say, he plays a lot of games. He's solid. He goes on to play for England. So to think that Solly comes in, he has a bigger impact on Charlton fans.
Yeah, I think. Well, again, it's me. Again, that's with the heart. Because of the level Luke Young played for, I think international for us. Using my head, he's the best right back I've seen for us. But just because of that personal, working goals and getting to know him and what happened, I think as my dog appeared in the background, good timing. Big Chris Solly fan. So yeah, that's why I put Soles in there.
Fair enough. Good shout. Right. Okay. So 4 across the middle.
It's just a bit misshapen. But because I needed those 3, I needed them in there. Well, I needed all 4 of them in there. So the guy I've got on the wide right should really be wide left, but because I know he's versatile and can do that job on the right, I've put Claus Jensen a little bit out position, out wide left. But I know he can do that job. Sort of. He's not going to be bombing up and down, but I just needed him in there. So Claus Jensen I've got in my left of midfield.
Lovely.
Arsenal looking a little casual, and Vieira has got a job on his hands here, and Claus Jensen's chip is absolutely awesome. And Charlton go 3-1 up at Highbury, and you can see what it means to them. A concerned look on the face of Arsene Wenger, and no wonder, because Arsenal dithered and dallied, and of all people, it was Vieira. It wasn't the best of throws from Ashley Cole, who's had a nightmare start to the second half, but Vieira got...
Still my best goal I've seen in the flesh. That
incredible, isn't it? I mean, you don't see Charlton players score those type of goals, do you?
No, but Claus was just pure class, wasn't he? Claus Jensen. But he could produce that sort of stuff, and something that Curbs has said before as well, that if he wanted to, he could have played for an Arsenal or a Man United, but he was kind of happy with his lot. He was happy to play his guitar and have a cigarette, and he was so laid back. From what I've heard, the stories I've heard, such a laid back player, but was just capable of that, and threading those passes, set pieces as well, like dead ball specialist. Some of the free kicks he scored for us as well. Just a real touch of class. Again, that you sort of didn't really associate with Charlton in the years before that. We never had a player like that, really, did we? That was doing those sort of things. Again, another international, played in the 2022 World Cup against England, didn't he? I think for Denmark, we beat them. So yeah,
which World Cup?
2022. Sorry, 2002.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, I was thinking, yeah, of course, 2002 they qualified, didn't they? Yeah, of course.
02, yeah. Yeah, played England. He played in that, I think. I think Dennis Romerdale played in that. I think he did before he joined us, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an incredible player. I mean, I remember writing a sort of quite strongly worded email to Charlton because I was really pissed off that Claus was getting in above Robinson, and that's how it looked to me, because I just saw this guy, like I was brought in and I was brought up to appreciate the players who really, they hit hard and they work their socks off and play that kind of football. And then I watched this guy, he's got no hair, he's swanning around, like doesn't look interested, and then maybe he does one good thing once a game. But looking back, like it was just, that's because we'd never had that type of player before, and he didn't need to do it. He didn't need to cover, 10 miles a game.
I guess I sort of took this to the next level as well at that time. There was that slight transition with some of those players. I mean, Robbo played, there was crossover there in that team, and that first couple of seasons back in the Prem. But 3 seasons, that first 3 seasons, he was still involved, Robbo. But yeah, Claus took us to that next level. From the difference between the first time we got promoted and went back down again. Again, something that Kerb says, perhaps he was too loyal to those players that got us there in the first place. But then learning that lesson the second time, those were the sort of signings that took us to that next level to make us compete in the Prem. Because he rang rings around us we played Bolton, didn't we, the year before. That cup quarter final, the year we went up. Could have got to Wembley then in the semi-final. The last FA Cup at Wembley, at the old Wembley. And he played us off the park in that quarter final up at their place, and we lost. Which I guess is why we signed him.
Yeah, I mean, no reason better to sign someone. I mean, that's what happened with Parker, isn't it? And Chelsea. I think when you look at, I think we bought him for around 4 million, and 4 million at that time for Charlton is a lot of money to be spending. And to think like sending him on to Fulham for a decent whack as well, it just kind of proves like his quality stayed throughout, no matter how many fags he smoked or how old he got. He was still just such a...
He had his share of injury problems, obviously, when he went to Fulham after that. But I think Kerbs was quite good at pulling the trigger at the right time when players left. And the next player we speak about is another example of that, actually.
Should we go on to?
Yeah, we can move on. Mark Kinsella.
Kinsella always gives the impression of being here, being there, and being everywhere. 1 minute on his own goal line, the next making vital tackles, then showing some superb vision. And probably finishing off a move as well. He didn't win his first cap for the Republic.
Yeah, Mark Kinsella. I'd never seen that, actually. That was a good little summary from Sky Sports. Dickie Davis.
Kind of sums it up, doesn't it? Because I remember him as just being a bit of a workhorse. But when you think, like, again, sort of similar to what you're saying about Jensen, free kicks, box to box, like, he did
bangers from the edge of the box. That's like that tackle they made for Ireland there again. Yeah, probably associate that more with your Scott Parkers and people like that, but capable of it all. And again, real catalyst for the success we had. And he was the first, he was there the 96-97 season when he came in. So he was the sort of first piece of the puzzle, really, of the new people coming in to build that base around, your Steve Browns and people like that who were already there for a few years. John Robinson. He was that next level. And getting him from Colchester as well, lower down.
Yeah.
Unearthing a gem like that. I think we nicked him from under the nose of Gillingham. He was on his way to Gillingham to sign him, and Kerbs snuck in and got him. Thank God.
Yeah.
And then the way he stepped up as well in the Prem, just took to it again like a duck to water. Didn't look out of place, scoring goals. Scored up. I think he put us 1-1 up at Old Trafford, didn't he? I think that first season in the Prem, and that was when I was like, oh, we can do something here. We got beat 4-1, but he showed what he can do. And again, international level, Republic of Ireland. Again, it was just a really exciting time. and he was such a big player for us. I remember actually he scored the first time I really took notice of him as a little kid. We played Newcastle in the FA Cup at the Valley, and we took him to a replay, and he scored the equaliser late on, sort of 25-yarder, dipping into the bottom corner, live on Sky, and it's like, yeah, he's proper good. And like, with him being Irish, but my mum's side of the family, where all the Charlton support comes from, we're all like, that's Irish side of the family. So someone like him, you know. And my great uncle, I was mentioned earlier, still goes on about how everyone pronounces his name wrong. It should be Kinsella.
I mean, that's probably, in terms of signing business wise, Kerb signs him for 300 grand and sells him for 1.15 million, and he plays that amount of time for work. I mean, there can't be many better signings than that. Like you said, considering he kind of builds a team around him until we get into the Prem, and you know, first couple of years in the Prem. Yeah, there can't be. And I think he's the one player that Kerb says, if we hadn't have gone up in that playoff final, Kinsella would have been one of the first out the door. He would have been taken by someone.
And when we came down, there was, you know, him and Danny Mills were the two that had interest from the bigger clubs, and it was lose one or the other. And it was obviously Danny that went to Leeds, and we kept Mark Kinsella. So yeah, it could have easily been him.
Yeah.
And again, thankfully, was, you know, we managed to fill that gap that Danny Mills left. Probably wouldn't have been able to fill that gap as easily with Mark Kinsella.
No, I mean, who comes in? I mean, we're lucky, you know, a couple of years later we get Holland come in and he does a really sort of similar job, but it takes a long time to see a player like that again for
100%. And you said obviously went off to Villa for 1.3 million, did you say? As I mentioned before, with Klaus, Kerbs knew when to pull the trigger on people when it was winding down. So he obviously had his issues with injuries in his knee as well. So we probably fleeced Villa a little bit because we sort of knew that was coming, from what I understand. So again, it was. I remember being sad when he left. I remember a little bit of a surprise, but again, it was Kerbs using his head and thinking what was right for the club at the time, and it was what was right for the club at the time because it worked out all right.
And what's he like? What was he like as the assistant manager with Parkinson when you were working? Sort of
I was before I was working. That was before I was working for the club. But that pre-season trip to Dublin, we got him to do co-com. So I commentated with him on one of the friendly games. I think it was the UCD game, University College Dublin University team, which we lost to. We played three games in 3 days. It was what Carl Robinson used to like doing. He probably still does.
He's doing all right. So I mean,
we'll find that out in the summer. It was really good. So we got in contact with him. He drove down from wherever he was in Ireland, and it was getting out some pleasure. Chatting to him before, commentating with him during that video's still up on YouTube with the whole game. It'd be nice to listen to that back actually. Again, just like proper legend. Like as I mentioned about Clive Mendonca, he was the other one really that you know you want to be in a playground and try and replicate. And pleasure to get to know him. Yeah,
well, I mean, a fantastic player, another sort of Mr. Charlton in a way. So, who you got 2 more in midfield? Who are we going with?
Scott Parker is the other one in the middle there.
I love this video. This is probably my favourite clip. But look at the hair and the voice just doesn't seem to work. I'm going to press play now. It's incredible.
Scott Parker has the world at his feet. Or so said those familiar with his ball skills. And that's a lot of people. Remember this? That well-known burger chain commercial showed that even at the tender age of 13, he was no common or garden player. Now he's 17 and out to prove he's ready for the Premiership with newly promoted Charlton. But the Wonder Kid image still takes some living down.
I can't believe people still remember it, to be fair, do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, 6 years ago now, it's so old, you know, and at the time I got Untold and I was only young still, I was about 13 and it was a lot to handle, to be fair, do you know, and...
That voice is mad, isn't it?
So
it's weird seeing him in that white Vigling kit as well, isn't it?
It's a great kit as well. So for me, my heart breaks every time I see him. I can't look at him and not feel just so hurt. You've had some, like, there's been some terrible stuff happen to you with the club since then. Does it still hurt?
That's my first heartbreak in any walk of life. I'm genuinely gutted when we lost him, because we were going somewhere. He was
good.
The best player I'd seen play for us by that point. And well, if we're being honest, absolute class. I was 15 when that happened, that January 2004, wasn't it? And a few weeks earlier, he was on the front cover of Shoot magazine. I was more of a magazine guy, but I was in Double Eight Smiths in Bromley, and Shoot magazine was there, and Scott Parker was on the front cover. And the Paul quote was in the whatever 4-page spread or whatever it was. As long as Curbs is at Charlton, I won't go anywhere. Basically, it was something like that. I don't know if anyone else remembers that, or anyone has that copy. I remember it. I've still got it in the attic, probably. I kept all that stuff.
Oh my god!
And a few weeks later, that happened. And there was rumblings, wasn't there? And it was going on a bit. But close you got to the deadline day, you thought, I will be all right. And I remember I think I had football training. I used to have football training on a Thursday, Lewisham Youth, and I think it was, again, I have to look at the calendar if I've got that right. But I'm pretty sure I got picked up by my mum on the way from Catford on the way back, and it was on the radio, because back then it was no social media. It was the website, obviously, or the radio, and it was on the radio. And I'm pretty sure I did something pathetic, like went home and ripped a poster off the because
it's not pathetic. You have to let it out.
Yeah, I think it was him and his England. I think he played for England by then for us, hadn't he? I think he had. And there was that poster, and I ripped it off my wall. 15, like older than I should have been. That behaviour, I guess. Right. But I was gutted, absolutely gutted.
Right there with you, mate.
I just felt like everything we'd worked for, like to get into the position we got in at that time, was just going to go down the toilet, which kind of did. Really, you can kind of, the downfall sort of almost coincides with that. But I guess he earned it in a way. It would have been nice at the end of that season, and it would have been nice if he'd gone to a club which would have appreciated him more.
That's it, and that's the biggest thing. If you've got to be. I've said it 100 times, because obviously everyone picks him, but you've got to be so humble at that age to think, and that you've been the best throughout your life. Whatever club you've been at, you've been the best player there. And he's such a big fish in a small pond at Charlton. He's doing so well. For Chelsea to come in and say, look, we're going to make you the main man. We're going to put you on this much money. You're going to be playing in Champions League, whatever. To go, no, do you know what? I don't think I'm that good yet. I'm going to take some time. No one's going to do that, are they? But it rips my heart out. You mentioned you work with every player. What was the interview you did with Parker? What was the situation?
He's one I haven't, so it's two.
No, okay.
As we said it, I was actually we haven't done it. Well, I've come across him, to be fair, but not. So when he was at Fulham, and shook his hand or whatever. But that's pretty much it. I remember saying to Keith Peacock, actually, because I've had this same discussion I've had with you with him about how that broke my heart and stuff, and he's quite defensive of Scotty, and like why I did it. And we always said it'd be great to do at the time we did like a Valley Stories thing where we did sit down interviews with
I remember
and stuff, Kurt being one of them. And I said to him, like, it'll be great if we could get him, and it's like you mediating. So Keith Peacock mediating, and then me talking to Scott Parker about why you shouldn't have gone and all this sort of stuff and his side of the story. Still think it'll be an interesting piece,
100%. Well, did you see the Lee Bowyer and Lyle Taylor thing on TalkSport where they were talking about?
Yeah. I don't still get weirded out by that relationship. It's strange to me. I don't understand why. I don't understand it.
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, Bowyer...
all forgiveness, but if there's one person who suffered the most from that, it was probably Bowen.
I agree, and I think if you look at Bowyer's character and how he played on the pitch, I kind of put him in the same bracket as Joey Barton as a player, in the sense of like he was really aggressive, attacking. He was everywhere. I'd much rather be in Bowyer's camp now and sort of a bit of forgiveness, a bit of understanding, rather than where Barton's gone. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, Bo's grown up a lot.
It's very healthy.
Probably hasn't. But he has a temper on him, though. Bo, I can tell you a few stories.
We haven't got along enough, have we?
I came on the wrong side of him a couple, well, once actually, but it's all fine. An hour later, and it's gets on with it. It's what football's like a lot of the time.
Just tell me quickly, what did you do?
It was nothing. It was AFC Wimbledon in the Johnson's, whatever, Checker Trade Trophy as it was then, I think. The season we went up.
Yeah.
And I'd go in and get the team sheet. So we do a team sheet exchange an hour and 15 minutes before kickoff. You then take that to the opposition, take it, the media take theirs, write a team sheet up, get ready for social media and stuff like that. So I was always responsible for reminding the manager or the assistant sometimes, make sure the team sheet's written and go and see the referee. So I used to come inside the door of the dressing room. I don't know if you've been in the dressing room at Charlton. You go in and there's sort of a wall and it goes round to the opening.
Oh right, yeah. No, I did go when I was a mascot.
The manager's office is on the right. There's two doors, an external door to the manager's office and then one inside into the dressing room. So I always used to just wait in there a couple of minutes early and then give him a little knock and go, team sheet. So I'd just gone in there and then Bo comes out of his office and then goes, what are you doing here? And I went, and I'd missed the game the week before because I was at a friend's wedding in Germany. So I thought he just meant like, oh, where have you been?
Yeah.
And I said, I can't remember what I said. I made a joke, I think.
Yeah. And
then he just went for me, basically.
Jesus.
They said he was going to knock me out and all this sort of stuff. Little prick. So,
fucking hell.
Because I thought he was joking, I just and then I got to a point where I was just sort of looking at him going, I don't know what to do. Everything I've said up to this point has been the wrong thing, so I don't know what to say now.
Yeah.
And he told me afterwards that he thought I was staring him out.
What? Oh,
because I was up for it. This is one big misunderstanding, Bo. This is not what's happening here.
Oh my
God.
I
think he just had some sort of bad news or something. I don't know, probably got off the phone to Roland or something.
Yeah.
And I'd come a cropper, and then Jacko had to come and sort of take me out and go. But I went and saw him like the next day, or I think we had a game on a Saturday or something. And he apologised and said, I'll just go from red to green, or green to red, no amber, and all this sort of stuff we kept saying. And he explained that what he thought was going on. I was just like, we were having two completely different discussions, mate. I thought we were having a laugh, and
Amazing.
There's a big misunderstanding, but because football. You got football dressing rooms that are like that, and people, the players fight. Like there's some great stories, especially in the 90s, of players like thumping each other in the dressing room, like and stuff like that. That's when we were successful. And then they mates half an hour later. I'm not really used to that, so if I get dragged into that
generation, aren't we? We're a lot more.
A bit more of a shell shock for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it was all.
We're delicate flowers, Ollie. We need to be arm around the shoulder kind of thing.
Protected at all costs, not threatened to be knocked out in the dressing room. But it's it's a funny story at least. So
yeah. Well, one of the players that I reckon probably was involved in a few of those tussles is your last midfielder. Do you want to give us a little?
Yeah, John Robinson on the wing. Again, he probably should have been on the left wing, but I've moved him over to the right just so I could fit in Claus Jensen.
Fingertips to it. A fantastic finish to a quite extraordinary game. Jensen's corner. Kinsella. And it's in! Robinson! John Robinson scores! What a comeback from Charlton!
John Robinson.
Love him so much. Tell me everything, because he's my favourite ever player. I'm absolutely obsessed. That interview you did with him is fascinating. What was he like meeting him?
Yeah, okay, he's interesting bloke. But yeah, good. Like again, one of my heroes. Great to meet him. Great to speak to him a few times. You know, there was a big stage where he was sort of back and forth a fair amount, doing various stuff with us. But yeah, as a player, he's one of those that just 110%, and that got him like a lot further in his career than if he didn't, if that makes sense. Like, he just busted a gut. I remember as a kid, the ball going up before they built the quadrant of the with the north, rebuilt the north stand, basically the covered end. If you remember, there was, like there is behind the big screen, like a sort of grassy hill thing, bush up that corner of the east, northeast side of the ground. I remember the ball getting stuck up there when we were chasing goal, and he raced up there halfway up the hill to get it and then back down again. Things like that stick with you. That Man United goal there, good example, like right up until the last minute, like, and his celebrations were just mad, weren't they?
He loved it.
And he said that was he was trying to go for curbs because he'd been left out, and he was trying to find him to have a go at him. Like, that's what he said in the interview anyway when I spoke to him about it. And even that day at Wembley, he got left out.
Yeah,
because he had a fracture of the leg a few months earlier, and they arranged a game for him to get fitness the week before, whatever, and came through that no problem. And he was expecting to start, got told he wasn't, nearly smashed the door down in anger.
I bet.
And then Kerb said to him afterwards, it turned out all right. And he was still annoyed afterwards, despite, playing his part, getting promoted, getting an assist.
Yeah. Listening to some of the stories on you've spoken to him about, and on Mod Pod with Steve Brown and stuff like that, it sounds like he was just such a character you'd want to have around, like fiery and but like giving, like you said, giving everything, and a bit of a Wally sometimes as well. I think that's exactly what you need, isn't it, in the dressing room?
Lovable Wally, yeah. But again, like, I think if you look back at those videos from the, anywhere from sort of 95 to 99, 2000 and beyond, his involvement. He's involved in so much. Like, obviously, some cracking goals, a lot of assists, getting the balls in the box. Like, again, such a big part of why we succeeded. He was a good player, and plus that 110% attitude. Another international. He was our most. He might still be our most capped player actually for Wales. Need to look that up, but he was for a while. So again, like, just someone that epitomised that successful team, that promotion.
30 appearances for Wales and 3 goals. I mean, 332 appearances for us as well. It's incredible, like, to have someone like that around for so long. But again, like you said, his career it didn't seem like it was cut short, but he had a lot of injuries later on, didn't he? So
yeah, he did. And as well, like, again, that evolution of getting those sort of other players in, he got left behind a little bit, and as he was getting older, it kind of made sense. I think he went to Cardiff. He didn't play that much longer afterwards. I think Lady Lawrence was manager at the time, which is why Kerbs thought he'd be a good fit for him. But yeah, just great player, good. Every team needs a John Robinson, I would say.
I agree. All right, so we're on to your 2 up front. Now, there was a surprising one in here. So, who do you want to go with first?
We'll stick with the era and go with Clive Mendonca, as we discussed earlier.
To be involved in probably one of the best games at Wembley in the playoffs was such a highlight. I scored quite a few hat-tricks in my career, but to get a hat-trick at Wembley, it's something you dream of.
Whose side are your family on today?
It's a bit off and off, really, but everybody wants me to score. Like, a lot of them have said, "I hope you score and you get beat," but I think we'll win.
What can you say about Clive Mendonca? I mean, that day alone, even if he didn't kick a ball, either side of that for us, that day alone was, just amazing. I don't think you get a better hat-trick score, better collection of goals scored in one game of that, a major final like that. It is a major final, like the playoff to get into the Prem.
Yeah.
At that stage, to score 3 goals like that, you won't see 3 better. 3 totally different goals as well.
Well taken. So it seems to have so much time.
We've always been a debate about which goal was the best of those 3. And I remember we actually did a poll on CFC Official years before we did that interview with him, actually, when we went up to his house. And I think the third, the hat-trick goal, the extra time one won out. I think that was the winner. But I've always maintained the first goal was the best one, where he receives it, spins, turns, and then puts it in. And he agrees.
It's better than Dennis Bergkamp.
Yeah, there's a vision of it. Like, and he even says that he gave Lionel Perez the eyes when he did that. You watch it back. How have you got time to do that? Like, how have you got time? Like, it's just what we were saying before, the instinct of it. So good, just an unbelievable player, and is responsible for so many of our like best moments. Like, you know, that day at Wembley, I was just shy of my 10th birthday, but you know, that it's different levels, isn't it? You got the 2019 and the 98, two very different games. And I'll, you know, remember them very differently. Obviously, I was heavily involved in 2019, and being on the pitch and looking up and seeing all that is a different experience. But when you're 9 years old and something like that happens, again, I was in tears that day as well as a kid. Like, just Charlton made me cry too many times for good or bad reasons. That's why we care, isn't it? But that was, the epitome of Clive Mendonca. And then he went and did it. Like, he proved he could do it in the Prem. Again, most of his career spent, you know, in the second tier. But then hit the ground running in the Prem before his injuries kicked in. Hat-trick in his sort of second game playing at that level, playing in the Premier League. You know, scored against Liverpool at Anfield, that 3-3 draw. And again, it just makes you wonder, like, could have carried on going, and who knows, could have ended up with 20 goals in the Prem that season. If anything
it's
happened.
incredible to think, like, he's such a natural goal scorer. If he plays out, I mean, he had a lot of competition around that time. You got Shearer, Owen, Fowler. Like, he's a natural goal scorer that's always going to get you goals. But you'd say the same thing about Fowler as well, who's playing for Liverpool. But for me, I can't remember seeing. I don't think we see that quality of striker again, like natural goal scorer, until Lyle Taylor. I think there's a long time in between them, and I wouldn't say Taylor's in the same bracket, but
yeah, different players. But anytime you get a player that gets 20 goals a season, then there's something special, aren't they? So I mean, we only had. Well, obviously, Darren Bent scored a lot of goals for us. Don't think he would never hit the 20. Obviously, it's Premier League, but he got close to it. Andy Hunt, you know, this season
injury
again, yeah. And Andy Hunt sort of took the mantle from Clive when he was injured going into that season. But even then, that season we went down, he scored a hat-trick in the opening day, I think, against Barnsley. So he scored that amount of hat-tricks in a couple of years. Shows what he's all about.
Incredible.
It's a shame we didn't get as long from him as we could have done. You know, less than 100 appearances, 45 goals, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, he got 96 appearances, 45 goals. Good memory. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I have to remember these things. I've still got that's in the drawing there. Do you remember we did a card collection a few years? Well, 2015, I think we did a card collection.
So, yeah.
With the program, you got a card and you get put in the folder. I got extra Clive Mendonca ones, and then ended up with loads of them. But I got loads of them signed when I went to his house. Still got some if you want one.
Oh yes, please.
We've got appearances and goals on that. That's how I remember. But,
I love that.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, I've got loads of those. So.
Oh, mate, any merch, any retro stuff, I'm 100% all over. So yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about Mendonca at the beginning, but yeah, I could talk for hours about him. But then your second choice striker, surprise me a bit. Go for it. Tell me who you've gone for.
So again, this was the second where my heart went over my head, but I went with Yann Kermorgant.
Yann Kermorgant looks as if he could be the man to strike this one goalwards. It is Kermorgant. It's 3-1. Wonderful strike for the free kick from Yann Kermorgant. Up and over the wall and beyond Brezovan.
So yeah, again, I think normally it would have been Darren Bent again because of the level he played and the goals he scored for us, and even someone like Andy Hunt. But again, just having worked with him and seen him, and another one that was treated badly, Yann Kermorgant just was that touch of class at a time where we really needed it. And again, he when we signed him, if you remember, we signed him. He came with a reputation, didn't he? And like Leicester fans were taking the piss and penalty in the playoffs. But Chris Powell believed in him as a person and a character because he worked with him at Leicester. And I remember being in a press room when we signed him and we got handed a probably the last time this has ever happened, actually, an actual printed out press release that you handed out to journalists after a midweek game. It was MK Dons or something like that. And okay, don't know much about him. I've seen the penalty, not expecting much. He's going to be a bit part player, because if you remember that Paul Hayes was our starting sort of number 9 and was doing well. Yeah, he was doing well. But Yann was just 4 levels above. He was so good. Won every single header, but again, wasn't like he was 6'4". People forget that he wasn't.
He felt big though, didn't he? He felt like a big.
He's not huge, not towering, but his leap was unreal. Another dead ball specialist. Like if we had a free kick on the edge of the box, like a penalty sometimes, like because he won us games and won us extra points from those. And that that famous picture of him with his bandage around him, he's got his nose plaster on his nose. That's Yann Kermorgant. He'll give everything, a bit like John Robinson sort. You need people like that, and he was just bloody good. Yeah, and against another player who we got towards the end of his career, where he was really starting to become something special, where it's taken a bit similar to Clive Mendonca, I suppose, who was floating about, always scored against us, it seemed like, in the 90s. But no one really took a chance.
Yeah.
And as they got to a certain point, everything clicked in. And that was Yann Kermorgant. And he proved that when he went off elsewhere. It was just a shame for him when he went up with Bournemouth that he didn't get the opportunity in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
A couple of years earlier, a little bit younger, you never know. He might have got what he deserved, because I think he could have played a role like that in the Prem.
I completely agree. I mean, that quality he had, it just sort of shone through, didn't it? I mean, in terms of teams, I think he played for, I'm looking now at his Wikipedia, 10 teams, and he has the most amount of appearances for us, which is, for me, he didn't feel like he was there as long as he was, but he did have such a, like you said, I think he would have liked to have stayed longer. It was just, he kind of ripped from under us, but I mean, he's going to the Prem, isn't he? So he probably wasn't that upset about it. But he comes back a lot, doesn't he? And he still, I think, like Costa, still bits and pieces.
We got him back a couple of years ago. He did an interview with him in lockdown as well over Zoom, and so I've got a bit of a cough since Saturday.
It's getting emotional now, isn't it?
Yeah. And I've run out of my drink. But it was a shame what happened with him. It shouldn't have happened. What happened with him? Like, it was, again, another story. It's been told plenty of times, but treated badly by the ownership at the time, who thought we could do better, and obviously we couldn't. And again, that's when you talk about Chris Powell earlier. That was a real tough time for him, that January, and that I remember seeing him the day after. So I remember we were at the training ground and we had to hit publish on that story to confirm that he'd gone, and that was pretty painful. And then speaking to Chris Powell, he was coming out on the onto the training field and saying, like, "How you doing?" And he was like, "It's the first time I ever seen him go not good, basically." Because at the beginning of the end, really, we lost Dale Stevens as well. That January, I think, I'm pretty sure.
Just sort of ripping the heart out of it, weren't they?
Yeah, but Yann was the one. He was the best player, and I think they were. I think, from what I remember, he said that he said to Roland, like, "Do you want us to go down? Like, you're selling our best player.
Yeah,
like, we need to do everything we can to keep him." And apparently, they were up till 2 or 3 in the morning, like, the day before deadline day, when it was all rumbling on, and they finally got to a position where they'd agreed to give him a new contract. Katrine was going to give you a call, Yann, like, stay by the phone. This is in the early hours, and then the call never came. So in the end, Yann just said that they're disrespecting me. Like,
fair enough.
Go then, like, if they don't want me.
Such a shame.
We thought we had him. Chris thought we'd sorted it out, and no communication, no, just a breakdown, and that was it. It was done. And that was a big psychological sort of blow.
When Hobbs was there, you always felt like if a player went, there was a reason to it, and you build it. Like you said, you normally got rid of players at the right time. Kinsella, Sean Newton, John Robinson, they always went at the right sort of time. And you felt like they were building, they'd take that money and build. Whereas with that, it just seemed like, well, where's all the money going? Because you're not investing.
We went to Piotr Pajicek.
Oh, right.
That's what we spent.
Yeah, of course.
And that at the time, all you can do is go, all right, like you're telling us that you spent a lot of more money than what we got for Yann, right? He's young. Okay, he's scored a lot of goals in the second tier of the Dutch league or whatever it was. All right, and then he comes in, makes one appearance off the bench. He's not nowhere near ready, and it just that was the first sign of like this isn't right. Where the recruitment isn't, the processes aren't right. Basically, there's a lack of understanding about us as a football club and what makes us tick and what works and what doesn't, and misunderstanding the level that the Championship was compared to the rest of Europe at the time. That was probably the big.
That's in a nutshell.
That's fundamentally what the mistake was with Roland. I think there was a lack of due diligence about English football, really, outside of the Premier League, and the thought that people could come from Budapest in Hungary and Standard Liège or Centroid and just walk straight into the Championship when actually they weren't good enough.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's why we ended up getting relegated 3 years later. That, again, a culmination of things, again, like, which is what you need to avoid, like, learn from those lessons sort of thing. But ultimately, the reason we got relegated was because of those sort of decisions, and the characters that came in just weren't those sort of characters, if you like. We had a lot of players coming in from France, Belgium, who couldn't give a shit basically about where they were going to be. They knew they weren't going to be at Charlton the following season, so it doesn't matter if they get relegated.
Seems to be a bit of that's been going on the last couple of years as well, where players just seem to get their contract and they know they're on a bit of a spell.
Yeah, I think back then it was, we went from that 11-12 squad where everyone would be in, they'd be hanging around afterwards, they'd be socialising. Whereas, and then by the end of that 15-16 season, it was players coming in, certain players coming in, training, getting in their car and fucking off home, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that's the opposite to the environment you want to be a successful football club.
And do you know what? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, about the culture of the club and how that needs to be right for you to get anywhere, and why there's a bit of a building job to be done at times. And that was a perfect example of that.
One manager who said that, exactly that, was Nigel Atkins, and about having that positivity. When you're positive, you stay around longer, you train more, you put a little bit more in. Again, I was speaking to Gavin last week about it. It seems like Nigel came in and he didn't have the team around him that he normally had. And when you speak about all these different managers at all the different times, it just feels like one thing was just missing. They just didn't do quite enough or do quite the right thing. So again, not to come back to today, but hopefully it seems like Jones has come in. He's got Paul Hart with him. Hopefully they're really just trying to get behind him and back. He's a manager rather than the head coach, all that sort of stuff. So
I think the difference is that, back then we had like Carol Fry, and people, it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? So it's not comparable.
Yeah,
thankfully,
you're right.
Despite
this is your team on paper. How are you feeling about it? Seeing it all written down like that?
Yeah, good. I think that is certainly a team that could compete at a good level. Still, I mean, the midfield is a bit misshapen. With
Jensen's not doing much tracking back, is he?
No, exactly. He shouldn't be out there. Especially move to a diamond and perhaps put, Parker at the base.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
The thing about Parker, we didn't really cover this with Parker actually. Like he's I think best remembered for tough tackling and his passing and stuff like that. But he could do that attacking role if need. Like the goals he scored, some of them were unbelievable. Like that sort of solo effort against Leeds where he ran through in injury time and stuck it in at Ellen Road, and Southampton away, which we lost 3-2.
My favourite goal he scored.
Both of them. He scored 2 goals. We were 2-0 down. He got us back to 2-2 just after half time. And that's when what a player.
Let me just show you it very quickly, Ollie, because I got it right here.
Go on, leave.
Jensen. Ewell. Parker. Fancies another dip. Oh, look at that! Did it?
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Space just shows how
The
good
one
it
he
is.
scored before that was bloody good, and that was even better.
Yeah.
It's an angle from behind where you can see he uses one of the Southampton defenders to bend it around.
To hide it from the keeper, yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
He could do that. He scored a goal. He scored a long range against us, didn't he, when he came out of Newcastle?
Yeah.
So he had it in his. He had a bit of everything, Scott. I don't know why we've gone back to it, but yeah, ideally they don't all work together. But I just wanted to get names on the page, basically.
They're great players, mate, and I'm sure they find a way of working together. I mean, like you said, if you drop
certainly League One, they would anyway.
Oh yeah, I think they'd be all right. But like you said, if you drop Kinsella or Parker back to the base of a diamond, Jensen maybe at the top of it, and then have the other two in the middle, you'd be absolutely fine. And you picked a right and a left back that will run all day, won't they? They'll get up and down.
Yeah, Powell can overlap. Souls can overlap. Exactly, they've got plenty of energy.
They're going to work hard. So the question I ask is, if you had to pick someone from today's squad, someone who played on Saturday or whatever, they're in the team at the moment, to replace one of your all-time 11, who would you go for? And you can include Dobbo in
the current squad.
For someone who's playing today, that you'd have to swap out one of your all-time 11 for.
I forgot you were going to ask this. That's tough.
It is hard. It's a tough one, especially how we are at the moment. And I mean, luckily you got Dobbo back in the team at the moment, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, it will probably, it probably would have to be Dobbo, wouldn't it? He's the closest thing we've got to a sort of Kinsella or Parker. Well, not so much Parker, but maybe Kinsella.
Yeah,
I guess.
Alfie May.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably our best player, isn't he? Not particularly comparable to. He wouldn't be ousting Mendonca or Kermorgant. Yeah. Very different from Yann. But yeah, I mean Dobbo and Alfie are the sort of shining lights, aren't they? That's obvious. But
who would you drop out?
I don't think I could. I just have to sit on the bench, I think. This is the thing. If it was Dobbo, I've wedged in those midfielders just to get them on the team sheet. So if I have to take one out, that'll make things harder, wouldn't I? I guess I could. No, that wouldn't work.
But you can't even have Corey Blackett anymore to go in for Jensen.
No, that could have worked because I could have fixed that wide issue, couldn't I? But I might have even moved Jensen into Kinsella's position and put Kinsella on the bench. But even that's unthinkable. But yeah, I think Dobbo would be the one. But we're so far removed from where we were with some of these players. It's a tough call to make, isn't it? And an unlikely one, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen. You don't have to worry about it. For me, I just take out Parker because of
what he did. Yeah.
All right. So who are you going with? You're going to go for Dobbo for?
We'll go for Dobbo in for. Kinsella. I don't like that.
No loyalty. Loyalty.
I have to do it. So that's what I've gone with.
It's all right. I'm going to tell Kins. I'm going to let him know. Don't worry, mate. That's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's the longest one by a fair old whack, and I could have talked to you for another 2 hours. It's been fascinating, and I'm so glad to have you back at the club as well. It genuinely was one of those where you came back in. I was like, thank God they're sort of righting the wrongs, if you like. It was up there with the Range Rover for me, giving that away. Ollie's back; he'll be sorting stuff out. What's the ambition? Have you got sort of anything you're looking to do or want to do, or is it kind of you're happy in your role? This is me.
Yeah, well, happy in the role at the moment. Yeah, I've been sort of only back since December. There's a fair amount to look forward to with the community trust. Got the Upbeats walk coming up in April, which is going to be big. And going to be a lot of fun. Got a couple of things planned. Bits of content and stuff like that. So for the Upbeats, actually. So stay tuned on that one. It's hopefully it's not, because it's last time game of the season. The Upbeats walk. So hopefully we're not in a situation where we're relying on anything. So the Upbeats get the attention they deserve. So and then just carry on helping where I can on the club side of stuff. And it's just nice being around and being around the people I left, and a lot of new faces elsewhere side of it, so that's a little bit strange, but yeah, no, right now I'm just happy to be back. So it's just let the love affair continue, hopefully, for a good few years longer.
Yeah. Oh, lovely, mate. I'm glad to hear it. But yeah, it's like I said, it's been fantastic. I really appreciate it. Should anyone? What should people sign up to? Subscribe to anything like that? Is it just
well, with the trust, yeah, you can certainly donations to keep the trust going, and the various programs always very much appreciated. CACT.give/donate. You can give regular donations. Sign up for monthly donations, or just a one-off £5 or something is great. But people already know about the work the trust do, and there's a lot they probably don't know about, which I guess is what part of my remit is now, is to sort of shout about a lot of the programs, a lot of the mental health stuff, and various hospital discharge program, and all this sort of stuff that people potentially don't know about, that we want people to know about. So
yeah, I bet. I mean, I was doing school tours. My daughter's about to start. She's 4, going into school this year. Every school I went to around here is like, oh, Charlton come down and they do a train. Oh, we're affiliated with Charlton. And it's like, God, they are everywhere. They're everywhere in the community, and it's one of the reasons we got such a good reputation. And we are. And again, you think, well, all clubs probably do this and that kind of. They really don't. Like we are a shining light in that kind of way.
I think if you look at the statistics as far as the spend and committed spend to community programs and stuff like that, we are up there with, I think at last count, I think it was just Chelsea which were outspending us when you think of some of these clubs. Our social value, we had the impact report come out last year, which £49 million impact on the community, which is unreal, especially in the position we're in at the moment as a club and stuff like that. But we're still able to get out there in the community and make that difference. We're the leading lights, really. And that's all down to like people like Jason Morgan back in the day for starting it all up from literally just him and a bag of balls and putting a few sessions on and stuff like that. And it reaches so many facets, so many different strands and programs, and helps people in ways that, as I said, people probably don't realize, and actually, one day all of a sudden they're being helped by a community program that they didn't know it was there for them. That's the aim. We've got Men's Health Day end of the month as well, sort of alongside the PSA testing. So there's a lot of stuff around that, with outside of that, men's health, walking football, things like that, the mental health side of it, and the social groups and stuff. So there's loads out there. Get on the community trust page on the website and see how it can help you, because there's loads. And when it's your own, when the badge is connected to it and it's your own club, it's
means more, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it means more, and it maybe encourages people as well to get involved in stuff that I think the PSA testing, again, it's not a community trust initiative. Obviously we're supporting it, but that is a good example of that idea, whereby there are people who probably wouldn't think about getting a prostate, check, well, not a prostate check, but getting a PSA testing to test for the likelihood of prostate cancer. And again, there's not other clubs doing that, but there's people anecdotally who had literally had their life saved. The club put out a bit earlier today with a guy called Robin, who we spoke to as part of our walking football group. And that's why we filmed it. He told us that his friend had prostate cancer, which prompted him to do the test 2 years ago at the ground. He wouldn't have done it if he wasn't a Charlton fan and it wasn't available, and then found out he had prostate cancer, and now his life has been saved. Without that, he might not be here now. So the power of the badge and the power of the community is really big.
Massive, mate. That's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. And let's stay in touch and get hopefully we can do this in some way. Good. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, it was good going back down memory lane and looking back at some of those players. Hopefully those days will be back, and we'll be talking in 20 years' time about the ones that got us back to the Premier League.
Yeah. Well, Nick, it must be nicer for you going through all those clips, because you probably put half of them together, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely the Costa one. I'm pretty sure the Solly Luton one as well.
Okay. Well, I'll sort me out an invoice and I'll get it over to you. All right. Lots of love. Thank you, Ollie. Cheers, mate.
It's great to catch up, mate.
Cheers.